Charisma is often celebrated as a hallmark of great leadership. But what happens when this goes unchecked? Today, we're going to explore the hidden dangers of charisma, how it can backfire, and what leaders can do to avoid falling into its trap.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
Welcome back to another episode of the Champion Forum podcast. I am your host, Jeff Hancher, and I am on a mission to help others lead, inspire, and win in this life. Today, we're talking about the dark side of charisma and what happens when leaders that have an abundance of charisma, but this charisma goes unchecked. Maybe it's you that's listening. Maybe you've been around a leader like this. Maybe it's you and you don't even know it. And I would say that the majority of leaders that I work with, they carry a great deal of charisma. Charisma is not really a bad thing, right? It's this gift, it's this, I don't even know how to describe it, but when you see it and feel it, you kind of know it. And I work with a lot of amazing entrepreneurs and senior leaders of companies. They carry this oozing of charisma. I would also say that all of my time in my corporate world, all the time in the Fortune 500 space, this was often the case as well. Those leaders that were at the senior levels, man, it's almost like you could feel them coming. You could feel the charisma coming from them. I've seen time and time again that when this charisma, it goes unchecked, it can become very counterproductive, and it can compromise a leader's ability to make an impact. Now, I'm not here to broadcast on the show today that charisma is bad, but I am here to give you a little bit of a mirror to say, has your charisma gone too far? Has it gone unchecked? And has it become counterproductive? This is the watch out for leaders that carry an abundance of charisma. Charisma, it's a double-edged sword. Great leaders, they need to balance their personal magnetism with what? Humility, accountability, substance. There's always got to be a check and balance. This is the same way with confidence, isn't it? If you have an abundance of confidence, you might slip into arrogance if it goes unchecked. If you have an abundance of confidence with not sprinkled in some level of humility, you're going to be at arrogance before you even know it, and you won't even know how you got there. It's the same thing with charisma. So let's start by talking about why charisma is powerful. First off, we know this. We feel this with leaders. Charismatic leaders, they create unbelievable connection. Unbelievable connection. This connection, this charisma, it inspires trust. It drives loyalty. It's not a bad thing. We saw the impact of this from people like Martin Luther King Jr. We saw this from Steve Jobs. These people oozed charisma. It's almost like we couldn't wait for them to show up again. We couldn't wait for Steve Jobs to tell us about the next product that was coming out because how he went about it and the charisma. Martin Luther King Jr., when the guy spoke, you were hanging on the words that he had to say, how he carried himself, that little bit of bravado, that little bit of confidence, that little bit of what we hear the term gravitas, I can feel it when you're around. Charisma fosters confidence. It helps leaders rally the troops, get people around a shared vision. It's a beautiful thing, but we need to be careful of this charisma halo effect that could happen. People may overlook flaws or mistakes because they're drawn to a leader's charm. If you have charisma, you have charm. You become magnetic. But here's what could happen. People start overlooking things because of this charisma halo effect. This can be dangerous. So there are some hidden dangers of charisma that we're talking about. There are certainly risks that come from leaders with high charisma. Overconfidence, poor decision making. Charismatic leaders may believe in their vision so strongly that they dismiss the opinions of other people. This is a watch out, right? You're believing the hype so much that you don't even have ears for anybody else. And the leader begins to think too highly of themselves. Their charisma has gotten the best of them. This charm of a leader can shift the focus from the team or the mission that you're trying to accomplish to the individual, to yourself. From team to me, from mission to me. Look at me, 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 me. An example is when the leader creates an environment where questioning their authority is discouraged. And you might be listening today, and that might be you, and you don't even know it. Are people coming up to you? Are they asking questions? Do you have an environment that people approach you and they challenge maybe your way of thinking? They challenge maybe your direction? I don't mean they're disobedient. I don't mean that they're disrespectful. I mean that they come to you in a challenging way. If this doesn't happen on a normal cadence, you might be falling victim to this dark side of charisma. And it can be dangerous. When this happens, it's guaranteed to stifle innovation. Guaranteed. By discouraging this dissent and alternative perspectives and positions of other people, the organization, it's going to lose valuable input. Innovation is stifled at this moment. Nobody's speaking up because nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to maybe feel the wrath of, if I wanted to hear from you, I would ask, kind of this feeling, right? Because this charisma can bubble up to a dangerous place. The other downside is over-reliance on the leader. The team becomes overly dependent on you, the leader. And this is a high risk of collapse if you're not around. You get sick, you're on vacation, you leave the organization for whatever reason, you get promoted into a different department. This over-reliance on the leader happens because your charisma is so big, nobody else has a voice, and you have lost your ears. And so this over-reliance is going to and the end result is going to be a collapse of the team. There's also a lack of accountability that can come from this. The leader begins to operate without checks and balances, increasing risk of a lot of different catastrophes, unethical behaviors. I've seen this too many times, y'all. I won't go into detail. You can fill in some of these blanks, but there can be some unethical behavior. There can be some poor decision making when the charisma gets too big and you're getting a lot of fake applause from people. Now there can be a lack of accountability because there's no checks and balances. Got to be careful with this. You know, we saw this with some world leaders in the past, haven't we? Joseph Stalin, Kim Jong-il. I mean, they used propaganda. They cultivated this godlike image of themselves. Unhealthy, not good. You know, and people were just, marching to the slaughter, in some cases literally, because they created this godlike image. Leaders should strive to focus on team success, mission fulfillment, fostering a culture of collaboration to avoid falling in this trap, because this is a trap for every leader that carries a high level of charisma. Manipulation starts to settle in for some leaders. Charisma can be weaponized to gain power, to gain influence. It can become very self-serving. What's in it for me? Taking advantage of people. We all have witnessed political leaders do this, haven't we? We're not going to name names here on this show. But they exploit charisma to manipulate public opinion without ever even delivering a result. Look, fill in your own blank there, but we could go down the list. I mean, this is like a political game that is played. High charisma, I talk a good game, there's never results. We've all witnessed this in the political landscape. The end result of this is superficial leadership. Charisma can mask a lack of competence or depth to a leader, meaning we got everybody fooled. Our charisma is so high that we get the job, we get the promotion, but we always lack substance. We always lack results. We're not really taking anybody anywhere. We just got a lot of people fooled, and in essence, we're manipulating people. Leaders who rely on charm instead of meaningful action or results are manipulators. We can't do this. Now, I'm all about some charm. I'm all about some magnetism. I'm all about some charisma. But man, there's got to be substance to our leadership. This is usually very short-lived, and it causes the leader to bounce around, transition a lot. And why does this happen? And this is an indicator if this is you. Once they find me out, I got to move on. I got to go to the next thing. I'm always chasing the new shiny object. I can wow people for about 18 months. And then they got me all figured out. And then I'm going to justify it in my mind that this place is garbage. I got to go down the street. I got to go to the next place. And I wow them in the interview and I wow them in the onboarding. But guess what happens again? No substance. So we got to get a hold of this and set guards up against this. We can't just wow people early and lack substance. We got to deliver. So how do we recognize when charisma is becoming a liability for us in any way, shape, or form as a leader? Let's talk about it. What should we be looking for as signs so that we can safeguard ourselves from this liability? Here's a few that I can throw at you that I've seen up close and personal firsthand. If you are seeing the dark side of charisma, I can guarantee you people agree with you too fast without any critical evaluation. Hey, everybody, we're going to go down to the track today, and we're all going to run a 4-minute mile. Fantastic, boss. Can't wait. Man, I brought my running shoes today. This is going to be fantastic. What? We're all running 4-minute miles? No critical evaluation? No pushback on that? People just agree with everything that you say. It might be fake applause. Most likely it is. There might be an overcompensation, and this is the dark side of charisma. You might find yourself dismissing feedback or other perspectives. Somebody's trying to tell you something. You don't have ears for it. You're kind of giving them the hand. You don't even want the perspectives any longer. Or you're kind of listening. You're hearing, but you're not really listening to people because you think you have it all figured out. Maybe your team's success feels overly dependent upon your presence. When you're not around, no action is being done. Nobody is proactive. Everybody is reactive to your sword. When you speak, things happen. But if you're not there directing traffic, nothing happens. This could be a dark side of charisma. There's also signs for teams. Maybe you're a team member, you're listening. Maybe you report to a leader that has fallen into this trap. Here's some signs that might be the leader that you report to. There's more focus on the leader's personality than the mission or the outcomes of the team. If you report to a leader that is in this dark side of charisma, you're going to know this because you focus more on the leader than the mission. Man, if I say that in a meeting, how is the leader going to respond? Man, if I give them that critical feedback, are they going to act this way or that way? I'm always focused more on the leader's personality than I am the mission. That's a good sign that you report to a leader that has fallen into the dark side of charisma. The leader's decisions seem to be driven by personal ambition rather than a collective good. This is the leader that's driving the dark side of charisma, saying, if I need to step on people, I will. If I need to stab people in the back, I will. If it means doing that to get to where I need to go, I will. I have so much charisma, people are following blindly, and now I can take advantage of them. That's a dangerous place to be. So what we need to do, yes, chase charisma, but we got to balance that with substance. So how do we go about doing this? How do we balance charisma with substance? Well, we got to prioritize transparency. We have to prioritize accountability for ourselves. We as leaders, it's critical. And if you haven't fallen into this dark side of charisma, take some of this advice I'm giving today so that there are checks and balances, so that you're not even, flirting with the cliff. I always say people that aren't playing around the cliff will never fall off of it, right? Let's get away from it. Let's build systems where our actions and decisions are open to scrutiny. They're open to it. It's full transparency. You can say anything you need to say to me. Now, you're going to say it with respect. You're going to say it with honor, which that goes up and down in the organization, as it should. I'm regularly seeking feedback from my team and the stakeholders in my organization. If I'm not getting feedback, I'm going to find it. That's a great way to guard against this. I'm going to cultivate humility in my leadership. Remember, leadership is about the mission and the people, not you, not the leader. It's about the people. It's about the mission of your organization. We need to highlight team successes. When we're doing that, you know what we're really doing? We're sharing the spotlight. I always think of these sports coaches after a big win. They get up behind the podium. Hey, coach, great win. Tell us about the play and the scheme and all the things. And they said, listen, I have a great team behind me. They executed. Man, their athleticism today was off the charts. It's really easy to win when you got a team like that. Adversely, when the team loses, a great leader, a great coach gets up behind the podium and says, I let my team down today. I did not prepare them well, right? That's what great leadership does. If you want to avoid or put an audit so that you don't fall into this trap of the dark side of charisma, highlight your team every chance that you get. When the spotlight comes on you, hold up a mirror and reflect it onto your team. So it's important that we highlight team success. It's also just as important that we encourage healthy criticism. Are you getting criticism as a leader? If you're not, open that door up. Open that door up to criticism. Again, with respect, with humility, with honor. Create a culture where questioning you is okay. Constructive criticisms, they're welcomed. This is going to create the checks and balances that you need. When I think of this, my favorite president, look, you may not like this and maybe you're going to stop listening to the show, but I'm going to announce my favorite president of all time is Abraham Lincoln. And when I think of leadership, now look, I'm not saying he was perfect. He made plenty of mistakes. But when I think of his leadership, the one thing that I think he's done maybe better than any president, maybe better than any leader that I know or have ever read about or learned about, is he got people around him, including his adversaries. The things that I'm talking about in the episode today, he did 10 out of 10. I read once about Abraham Lincoln building what he called the team of rivals. He literally coined it this, where he surrounded himself with advisors who challenged him, who he knew they didn't really like him. They didn't really like what he stood for. They didn't always agree with what he had to say. So he literally built this committee, and he called them the team of rivals. When Abraham Lincoln became the 16th president of the United States in 1861, he made the bold and unconventional decision to appoint several of his political opponents, his adversaries, to key positions on his cabinet. Can you imagine this happening today, by the way? Oh my gosh. Nobody would dream of this going on. Abraham Lincoln was on the cutting edge of diversity way back in 1861. These individuals were all charismatic leaders in their own right. They were running for office. These were powerful people. They carried a room, if you will. They had presence, we call it. Many of them had competed against him in these campaigns. They competed against him for the Republican presidential nomination and had doubted his capabilities publicly. Why is this so remarkable? Well, think about the personal humility this must have taken. Despite his own charisma and his own leadership capability, which we saw come to pass on full display, Abraham Lincoln did not see himself as the sole source of wisdom for our country or the sole source of decision-making power. He recognized the value of surrounding himself with very intelligent people, even if they had once been against him or opponents of his. The message here is value diverse perspectives. Value this. This is a good way not to fall into this trap, right? Abraham Lincoln understood that a team of like-minded people might lead to groupthink. We're all just drinking the Kool-Aid around here, kind of thing. By including rivals into this committee, it was ensuring him that his administration would have a level of diversity of opinion, which ultimately led to very well-rounded decision-making. He can now process it. He wasn't just creating this groupthink around him. He wanted to be challenged. What a better way to challenge yourself than people that don't agree with you, publicly stated. Rather than using his charisma to dominate people and dominate the party and dominate his adversaries, President Lincoln channeled it to bring out the best in other people. And look, back of this charm this charisma with substance. Charisma can attract attention, but results build trust and credibility. Look, I love charisma. It's magnetic. People are going to be running to you, flocking to you. And the attention can go to a negative place. When you start stacking results onto charisma, now you have attention and you have trust and you have credibility. What a trifecta of leadership impact. Charisma, it's a powerful tool, but it's not a substitute for integrity. It's not a substitute for competence. It's not a substitute for collaboration. We need these things to be effective leaders. Great leaders recognize their influence and they ensure their charm doesn't overshadow the mission or the team. As we close out this segment, as we close out this episode this week, here's my challenge to you. Reflect on your leadership style. Are you leveraging your charisma for good? Or is it unintentionally creating blind spots in your leadership path? Appreciate you all listening in. Until next week, keep that charisma in check and keep turning that pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.